The new Dell G5 gaming laptops got some nice specs for a fair price, including Intel's new 6-core i7-8750H CPU and Nvidia's 1060 Max-Q graphics. So let's find out how well it performs in a bunch of different games. Just quickly, before we dig into the benchmark results, I wanted to mention that there's two 8GB sticks of DDR4 memory running at 2666 MHz in dual channel, the stock configuration present in my unit. The G5 is also available with 8GB of RAM in single channel, as well as Nvidia 1050 or 1050 Ti graphics options, or with the 4-core i5-8300H CPU. So the results will vary based on the selected configuration of the G5. The G5 that I'm testing with here is the highest spec model. All testing was done at 1080p, the native resolution of the laptop's display, with VSync disabled. With that out of the way, let's check out some gaming results. Starting out with Fortnite, we're getting really nice results. Even with max settings, the 1% lows are above the 60Hz refresh rate of the display. But keep in mind, this can vary quite a bit, as the game greatly depends on what's going on and what other players are doing. Basically, take the results with a grain of salt. Overwatch was tested playing with the bots, and again we're getting really nice results for this laptop, with 1% lows well above what the display can output at max settings. As usual, CSGO was averaging well above what the refresh rate of the display could output. The 1% lows dropped quite a bit due to the smokes in this benchmark test. But even with medium settings, the 1% lows were still above the display's refresh rate at 1080p. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, but again, take the results with a grain of salt, as like Fortnite it will depend on what's going on in the game, so the results can vary quite a lot, as shown by the 1% lows, which are quite a bit lower than the averages. Despite this, the results are still fairly good and the game played well. I've tested Far Cry 5 with the built-in benchmark. Even at max settings, we're averaging above 60 FPS, and the 1% lows aren't too far behind the average frame rates here, so again, it's going quite well. Assassin's Creed Origins was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and the results were similar, in that the 1% lows also weren't too far behind the averages. Dota 2 was tested using a fairly intensive replay, so this should be a worst-case scenario. Realistically, you'll probably get better results than this while actually playing. And even in this intensive test, we're always averaging above 60 FPS regardless of setting level. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark, and we're getting pretty high frame rates at all setting levels. Despite the 1% lows being a bit further away from the averages, they're still a fair bit higher than the 60Hz refresh rate of the G5. Battlefield 1 was also going quite well. Even in intense fights, the dips weren't too bad, as shown by the 1% lows, which again, even at max settings, are higher than the screen's refresh rate, so it felt quite smooth. The Witcher 3 doesn't really need a high frame rate to play, and even on ultra settings it played nicely, although you can boost the frame rate quite a bit by stepping down even just one level from ultra. Rise of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark, and were able to average above 60 FPS even at max settings. Ghost Recon is a fairly resource-intensive game, and was again tested with the built-in benchmark. Although ultra settings are quite low, this is always the case in this game. At high settings, we were just able to reach a 60 FPS average. Watch Dogs 2 is another fairly resource-intensive game, but is another that I personally think doesn't need a high frame rate to play. I can play this game with 40 FPS averages no problem, as long as the 1% lows aren't too low. At Ultra, we can see the 1% lows are fairly low, so the dips were a bit noticeable. It played well at very high or below though. Doom was tested using Vulkan, and again, to me it felt really smooth, even during large fights, almost averaging 100 FPS, even at max settings. Shadow of War was another game tested with the built-in benchmark. I don't really have anything else to say about this, so let's move on. Ashes of the Singularity was also tested with the built-in benchmark. And again, these are alright results for this game on a laptop, as this is a fairly intensive benchmark. I haven't yet tried undervolting or overclocking, as this will vary between laptops based on the hardware, but I'll cover those in future videos. This is how the laptop performs out of the box, which, to be honest, is probably how most people will probably end up using it, so this is what you can at least expect at a base level. So how do you guys think the Dell G5 did in these games? I've always thought the 1060 is a great choice for 1080p 60 FPS gaming. And although we've got the slightly lower clocked Max-Q version here, we're still getting really nice results. Especially considering the G5 has a 60Hz screen anyway, so in many games the higher frame rates are mostly wasted unless you attach an external monitor with higher refresh rate. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the full review of the Dell G5 gaming laptop, as well as future tech videos like this one.